barakatuh. First and foremost, I want to thank the organizers of this conference and also my family for their continuous support. My name is Faisa Ali, as Isaac said. I'm pursuing a degree in public health and in occupational therapy. I want to concentrate in pediatrics. I love kids, I want to work with kids. I worked in rehab centers around the DC area for 2 years. I'll be going to Somaliland on Monday, so I'm excited. I'm super excited about it. Although I was born in North America, my blood, my skin, my heart belongs in Somaliland. That is why I chose to dedicate my time and resources into helping my people of Somaliland. I went to Somaliland in 2001 when I was 11, and although I was very young, I was very curious about the natural issues that we had. One issue that constantly stood out to me was the state of water. I remember a guy on a donkey and a makeshift buggy would fill everyone's barrel every single day, and I'm thinking to myself, is that really sanitary? Is that something that I can drink of? I couldn't do it. And when I came back to the US, it really made me appreciate the simple things like running water and flushable toilets. So, as many of you are aware, Somaliland is going through the worst drought in recent history. Thousands of cattle and livestock are dying. Personally, I'm the type to watch a story on the news or read an article, and that story will stay with me for days. For example, I would go to an amusement park and see children playing in the water, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, like my people are here, they can't even have something so simple as a glass of water, and people are diving into water just for fun, So the United States assessed that across Somaliland and Somalia, 1.7 million people, nearly 40% of the region's population, need humanitarian assistance due to drought conditions. And there is a grim precedent. Between late 2010 and 2012, about 260,000 people died in the famine, despite predictions and warnings almost a year earlier. As the people of the diaspora, our duty is to learn and gain as much as we can from Western countries, to be frank, and bring it back to our land. I recently watched a documentary on Chicago's sewer system in the 19th century. So basically, the people of Chicago were living in filth. The water was running right next to, the drinking water was running right next to the sewer water. So the people, what they did was band together and figure out that the water is the main source of health in their community. So and the city was already built. They had not skyscrapers, but they had tall buildings back then. So they literally took the buildings off their foundation and built a sewer system underneath, which was unprecedented at that time. So I'm not proposing that Hargeisa or anything like that do that, but I'm saying that there is stuff that we can do and things that we can learn from the past. So the people of Chicago got it together, rose up exactly, and built a better sewer system for themselves. When Western countries found the unsafe water practices after affecting their health along with their mental health, not only, for example, a big issue right now is the Flint water crisis. And it's amazing that somewhere in America there's people who are dealing with the same issues that people in Angola and Somalia or Somaliland or anything like that are suffering. So there's lead in the water, which I believe that is something that is easy to take care of. However, I feel like the money is not being organized not being organized in a fashion to help the people very well. For example, many kids can't go to school because they don't have clean water or even to bathe themselves. So that's affecting every aspect of their lives. Children and young people are disproportionately affected with clean water and toilets that are not available. UNICEF UNICEF released a report emphasizing the sustainable development starts and ends with safe, healthy, and well-educated children. So if the children can't go to school because they don't have adequate water, or they're thirsty, or they're hungry, or they have their clothes are not clean, they can't get educated. Not only does this report present a tried and true argument for prioritizing investments that ensure all kids are given a strong start in life, also calls on government to target children and their families who are the most forgotten and excluded from these essential services and resources. Water is the foundation of life. View a society as a flower in a pot. You can give the flower the best soil, the best fertilizer. However, if it doesn't get adequate clean water, it will die. So what I say to the Somaliland people is learn from our mistakes. The same things that we were doing 10 years ago cannot be done today. So we must, and as a generation, we must improve Somaliland's environment indefinitely. So I'm calling out to the young people, the water crisis needs you. And as a young person, I'm always thinking to myself, what can I do? What can I help? And simply Google. Google is the best tool. Google Somaliland or even Africa's water crisis, you will get tons of hits online. Awareness is a major key when targeting any specific issue. So the more that we keep talking about it, the more that it's going to resonate with the people. We must take action and contact local leaders and show how much this issue is of importance to us. Search for donation sites approved by the UN to see how you can donate to the effort of clean water. There are efforts done right now by the Japanese and also a few years ago to take powder and put it in sewer water to make it drinkable. Currently, Virginia has been doing the same as well. If companies in Japan and other countries are doing that, why can't we do it ourselves? So, younger people can help out by fundraising for organizations of their choice. Thank you. Those a bit older can even start a nonprofit organization of their own. Again, Google is your best tool in this, and do your own research. I believe that we can make water the forefront issue, that we can see our land transformed before our own very eyes. Dubai, other cities in the Gulf did not miraculously build themselves, but they have the vision and the persistence of their people. We are young and budding with new ideas. The older generation must, and I emphasize this, the older generation must invest in our youth, and the youth must have an active role in our government, policy, and changing for the better.
Thank you, Faith. Next up here, we're going to have Hamdi Abdi. She's actually a George Mason University alumni, studied Masters in Public Health, concentration in epidemiology. I think I got that right. She was also a former volunteer at Edna Allen University or Hospital, summer 2015. Welcome, Hamdi. Your topic will be public health with a concentration in volunteers.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is my first time ever doing a panel discussion, so please bear with me if I stutter or get nervous. But truly, mashallah, that was a hard, both of these are hard acts to follow. I feel like there's so many other people that are more deserving to be up here rather than me. And first, as you know, as Fede said, I like to also thank my parents. Ibrahim Al-Gubasama Qabal is right up here, my mom. Okay, so my name is Hamdi. As said, I actually just graduated last week from George Mason University. Concentrated in epidemiology. I also did my bachelor's there in community health and nutrition. Currently, I work at the National Cancer Institute at NIH as a fellow where I do research in cancer epidemiology, mainly looking at the factors that affect and reduce cancer risk, infectious agents, physical chemicals, and so forth. For those of you that may have never heard of epidemiology, it's just a fancy word for a branch of medicine that basically looks at incidence, exposures to certain many things. It's such a broad term in a sense, but essentially trying to control diseases and other factors relating to health. So with that, through my high school and college studies, there's always a constant thought that resonated in my head as to why me, why am I here studying in America? Everyone in this room, of course, has a story to tell, a story of struggle, fleeing, and survival. Coming here at the age of 2 and actually not being born in Hargeisa, and so this is all I've known. As I said, last time was my first experience ever going back. But that notion always pondered in my head, why am I here? And with that, I always felt as though I needed, in my studies, to do something that was a benefit to the people. Just hearing the stories from my parents and so forth, I felt that I had to do something that was useful. So in a sense, I always felt indebted to that. So as I said earlier, I decided to pursue public health. I've always had a passion for maternal and child health, as I truly believe the well-being of mothers, infants, and children determine the health of the next generations and ultimately the health of the whole community. As many of you all know, we don't need to go into the statistics of maternal child health. In Africa alone, but more than 500,000 women die each year from preventable deaths, hemorrhaging, preeclampsia, and so forth. And nearly 2.8 million infants die within their first month of birth. And of course, this disproportionately affects East Africa. Of course, these statistics and facts were all just numbers to me until last summer, where I had the opportunity to go back. Thank you to Dr. Edna Adden for allowing me to stay 2 months at the hospital. So really, and seeing firsthand all those statistics and all those facts come to life is quite astonishing. She has an amazing facility where, with the midwife training program, and where I got to really spend a good amount of time there, getting to know the midwives and listening to their stories and why they're there, why they're studying, and always having just a drive and a tenacity. It was amazing to me. Of course, being there at the hospital, I witnessed life, the birth, I witnessed death, the grief from parents there. Unfortunately, I did witness a number of infant deaths, and it seemed as though all of this, in a sense, could have been prevented. I remember one day walking with one of the midwives. She had asked me to carry the chart as she went to go take the vital stats of the patient. And she had said, the mother had recently gone through stillbirth. The child had died within her belly, so she needed to go take the vital stats. And I said, what happened? And she had said, oh, she just drank contaminated milk. Living in the U.S., those things don't even cross our mind. We don't ever have. What are the odds of us drinking contaminated milk and it affecting, for mothers, especially affecting, the health of their infant growing inside of them? So, living in the U.S., all these thoughts never, crossed our mind. And as I said earlier, most of us children and youth are first-generation Americans, and we really don't understand what goes outside of our television, in a sense. We all are distracted by all the amenities provided to us, of the lifestyle that we live, and going on the notion of volunteerism. And for youth in America, especially Somalis, I believe that in order to really bridge the gap between us and our culture, I believe can be done through volunteering. As I said, last one was my first time ever as an adult, 27 years old, going to Somalia. It was definitely absolutely a culture shock, but as I said, the bridge was slowly being formed, and we all have roots, for the youth, we all have roots, we all come from somewhere, and it's important to understand that, and that helps you relate to your parents and your family and so forth. So I say to the youth in the audience, I wish there was more, but if you've never gone back home, if you frequently do, but really take the opportunity to volunteer. I highly recommend spending time volunteering, especially in vulnerable communities, education, health. With all of this, we all study different things, and the interdisciplinary collaboration could really make a difference for many out there. Through volunteering, there's a social effect felt on the lives of the volunteers as well as the people who they are serving. The lives of the people you touch are forever changed, and their gratitude will overwhelm you. As quoted, it's a kind of a cliche quoting, but you never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb inside his skin and walk around in it. I believe volunteering, I really, truly say, whether you're young or you're old, there is something that you can provide to those, whether it's just a smile or a pat on the back, something that will resonate within that person and, be good for both of you all at the end of the day. So I conclude with volunteering builds bridges and gaps and ties you groups of people together, especially for us, that have come here to Americans at such a young age and don't really truly understand life across the seas. So that's it.
Thank you, Hamdi. Really appreciate that. Next up, we have Abdi Samad. He's actually